The days that followed Rina's arrival at school felt like a blur for Haruto. His once quiet, routine days with Aoi had been disrupted. Rina was full of life, her infectious laughter, her endless energy, and her ability to connect with everyone around her. It didn't take long for her to draw Haruto into her orbit. She was different from Aoi, whose soft-spoken and reserved nature was the foundation of their friendship. With Rina, Haruto felt a rush of excitement he hadn't experienced in a long time. They began spending more time together, working on class projects, studying after school, and even hanging out with classmates in larger groups. Haruto couldn't deny that he enjoyed Rina's company. There was a certain freedom in being around someone who didn't make him overthink every word or gesture. She was easy to talk to, and more than that, she had a way of making him feel seen in ways Aoi never had. But even with all that, something about it didn't sit right with him. He missed the simple, effortless connection he had with Aoi's quiet, understanding bond they'd shared for so long. Still, he couldn't deny how much fun he was having with Rina. Aoi, however, noticed the change immediately. At first, it was subtle little things like Haruto cancelling their plans to study with Rina or showing up late to their usual hangouts. But soon, the gap between them grew. Aoi began to feel a familiar ache in her chest, a gnawing sense of unease that she couldn't quite place. She had always known that Haruto was kind and caring, but seeing him so drawn to Rina stirred something she couldn't ignore. One afternoon, as she sat at lunch, Aoi glanced across the cafeteria to find Haruto laughing alongside Rina, their heads bent together as they shared a joke. There was a tenderness in the way they interacted, closeness that had never been there between Aoi and Haruto. It was as though a wall had gone up between them, a wall she couldn't climb. She tried to shake off the feeling, telling herself that it was just her imagination. Haruto had always been there for her, and surely he still valued their friendship, right? But every time she caught him with Rina, it felt as though the distance between them grew. The worst part was how hard it was to admit to herself what she was feeling. Was it jealousy? No, that couldn't be it. She wasn't the type of person to be jealous. But then again, it was hard to ignore the flutter in her chest whenever she saw Haruto and Rina together. There was a selfish, painful part of her that wanted Haruto all to herself again. And yet, Aoi found herself pulling away even more. She couldn't face him, not when she wasn't sure how to put her feelings into words. Her emotions were tangled, and every time she tried to speak to Haruto, her words got caught in her throat. She feared that if she confessed her feelings, she would lose him forever. Haruto, for his part, was completely oblivious to the change in Aoi. He couldn't help but notice that she seemed distant lately, but he chalked it up to the stress of school or her busy schedule. They had always been so in sync. But now, their once easy conversations felt strained. He missed the way they used to talk for hours about everything and nothing at all. But with Rina, things felt effortless. She didn't require him to read between the lines, just got him. One day after school, Haruto found himself sitting with Rina at a cafe near their school. She had invited him to go over their project together, but the conversation naturally drifted from classwork to more personal topics. Haruto wasn't sure when it happened, but it had become easier to talk to Rina than anyone else. "Haruto," she said, her eyes twinkling mischievously. "Have you ever been in love?" The question was so sudden that Haruto froze for a moment. His mind instantly flashed to the person he had known since childhood, the one he had shared so many memories with. But he quickly pushed those thoughts aside. He couldn't afford to dwell on them. not with Rina sitting right in front of him, smiling so openly. "I'm not sure," he answered, his voice quiet. "Maybe I thought I was once, but I never really knew." Rina raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "What do you mean?" Haruto scratched the back of his neck nervously. "I guess I never figured it out. I always get confused. It's hard to know if what you feel is really love, you know." Rina smiled softly. "It's okay. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm here." She leaned forward, her expression suddenly more serious. "Love can be complicated, Haruto, but it can also be so simple when you're ready to face it." Haruto was struck by the honesty in her words. He appreciated her openness, her ability to say what was on her mind without hesitation. But at the same time, something in him pulled back. Could it be that he was starting to feel something for Rina? Or was he simply lost in the comfort of someone new? As Haruto sat there, lost in thought, Aoi was somewhere else, struggling with her own turmoil. She had been so determined to confess her feelings to Haruto, to tell him that she couldn't keep pretending that nothing had changed. She had spent weeks planning the right moment, gathering the courage to open her heart to him. But that evening, as she made her way to the park where she had arranged to meet Haruto, she saw something that shattered her resolve. There, beneath the cherry blossom tree, the very same tree where they had shared so many memories, she saw Haruto and Rina standing close together, laughing and talking softly. Rina's hand brushed Haruto's arm, and in that moment, everything Aoi had feared was confirmed. Haruto had moved on. It wasn't her anymore. It never had been. Aoi's heart cracked as she watched them, her legs suddenly weak beneath her. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. A wave of cold despair washed over her as the world seemed to blur at the edges. She turned quickly, unable to face them any longer. Her throat tightened, and the lump of emotion that had been building up for so long finally exploded. She ran as fast as she could, not caring about anything but the crushing weight in her chest. She ran past the park, past the familiar streets, past everything that reminded her of Haruto. She ran until her legs ached, until her lungs burned with the effort. Only when she found herself standing in an empty alley did she collapse against the cold wall, her tears falling freely. In that moment, Aoi realized something she had never truly accepted before. She had lost Haruto, and there was nothing she could do to change that.